Welcome. Today we'll be exploring the issues around gender pay gap. So, I want to learn more about how gender pay gap plays out in the more developed countries, like in the first world countries, compared to, for example, like Southeast Asia, where I have seen gender pay gap, especially when I was young. Yes, like many years ago when I was in school, went to the village and I saw that women were paid less for their work compared to men. I'm referring to female laborers here and male laborers. So men, for example, if a trench is being dug by someone for, I don't know, um, for the purpose of, how do I put it, cultivation, agriculture. So, if a trench is being dug, and if there are male laborers and women laborers, the I think the idea of paying women less was that the idea behind that was that the men were able to carry more soil per trip, so they either required less trip or with the same number of trips they were able to clear more soil. On the other hand, women and even children, when I was young, I saw children. The situation is definitely much more improved now. There are no, I'm sure there are no child laborers in the village, even in the remote villages anymore. So when I was a child, what I saw that women and children were paid less compared to the men because in the absolute terms of productivity, they produced less labor. So that's why their per day pay was less compared to the men. So that was one thing what I saw firsthand. Uh, but I'm not sure how this gender pay gap plays out in the modern world where the productivity is not dependent on physical strength. So, for example, when in a modern first world country, most of the people, I guess, they are working in the service industry or like in the tech, law, medicine, the office-based jobs. So, how does gender pay gap affect women in the first world countries? So, I'm going to discuss this with Bob today. Give me an example of gender pay gap in the first world countries because I know how pay gap affects women in the not first world countries. I wouldn't say third world countries. I would say less developed or developing countries. I know how this affects women. Uh, I'm not sure. Like in the developing nations, and in the less developed countries, the garment industry is a big industry which employs hundreds and thousands, probably women. And as far as I understand, there's probably a salary structure there. So I don't think there is a gender pay gap, like in terms of in the same post, a man is getting higher salary compared to a woman, even in the developing countries in an industry like in the garment industry. So if I'm wrong, please correct me in the box. My understanding is that there is a salary structure and people working in the garment industry or industries like that, like in the production industry, they get similar salaries. Right. So give me an example of gender pay gap in the first world countries.
Sure. Here is an example of the gender pay gap in first world countries. In the United States, women earn on average 82 cents for every dollar that men earn. This means that women working full-time, year-round earn about $10,000 less than men each year. The gender pay gap is even wider for women of color. For example, black women earn only 63 cents for every dollar that white men earn. The gender pay gap is not due to women being less qualified or less productive than men. It is due to a number of factors, including gender discrimination. Women are more likely to be paid less than men for the same work. Occupational segregation. Women are more likely to be employed in lower-paying occupations than men. Lack of women in leadership positions. Women are underrepresented in leadership positions, which means that they have less power to negotiate for higher salaries.
Okay. The rest
The
of it
gender
is the
pay gap
effect
has
of
a
gender pay
number.
gap. So, uh, and the number and ways to close the gender pay gap. Anti-discrimination laws, providing paid family leave, investing in early childhood education, promoting women into leadership positions. Okay, fine. Now, what's being meant by gender pay gap is here. So this is probably the scenario in the privatized jobs where I'm not sure, probably for the same role, a man is able to negotiate higher salaries compared to a woman, and even more compared to a woman of color. I have not experienced this because I'm in medicine, and to my understanding, all my female colleagues are being paid the same as me, and the pay is not dependent on your race, color, ethnicity, background, or anything. It is solely based on your clinical experience and the years you've worked previously. So there's kind of like a build-up of progressive salary and your like qualifications. So this is probably, I'm not sure whether this is the same case for private jobs. It sounds like from here that the main thing here is that more women are more likely to be paid less than men for the same work. That's one thing, because it's probably because they're not being offered the same salary as men, and they have less negotiating powers. The other thing is that women are not being employed in high-paying jobs, probably because I don't know, like backward thinking that women are not as good, but that's completely a wrong idea. Completely a wrong idea. I mean, I have seen my colleagues, like at least half of them are women, or even more, I don't know. I'd probably say they're better than me in most of the things they do. Yeah, I've worked under bosses who are women, and many times I like for some of them I'm kind of like impressed, not because they're women, but because how efficient and how skilled they are. Not because they're women. That how come a woman is so skilled? Not like that. Like that. I'm just thinking that yeah, people are thinking that women are not skilled, so let's offer them lower salary. But I've worked under women who are way more skilled, confident than me, have much more leadership skills. Yeah, definitely. So definitely that's not the case. I know this firsthand, working in medicine. Like a female surgeon, if she's very skilled, I'll depend on her for my life. So, right, that's one thing I understand that it's kind of like backward thinking, dogma, stigma, things like that. That's keeping this gender pay gap in place. Now, now, uh, what what else should I ask about? Hmm. So, how to close the gender pay gap? Laws that prohibit gender discrimination in pay are essential. Closing the gender pay gap. Paid family leave would allow women to take time off from work to care for their families without losing their jobs or their income. Again, this is probably not a major, big, long-term issue, like losing their jobs, eh, especially the woman is in medicine. But for private sector jobs, I can see that possibly happening because if you have a gap, I mean, even in medicine, this is difficult. Yeah, in a way that if there's a gap when you come back, there's no, I understand there's probably no big barriers for you to come back to the workforce in medicine, but there are other hurdles which are often not visible. Right. So I think this is a good response. So how to close the gender, although it's already been answered, let's explore it a bit more. Gender. No, I think the more interesting question is that some people say there is no real gender pay gap. What is their point of view? Hmm. Let's explore the other side of thinking, other way of thinking. Hmm.
Some people argue that there is no real gender pay gap. They point out that when factors such as education, experience, and occupation are taken into account, the gap narrows significantly. They also argue that women are more likely to take time off from work to care for children, which can lead to lower earnings. However, there is still evidence to suggest that gender discrimination does play a role in the pay gap. For example, studies have shown that women are more likely to be paid less than men for the same work, even when they have the same qualifications and experience. Additionally, women are more likely to be underrepresented in leadership positions, which can lead to lower earnings. The gender pay gap is a complex issue with no easy solutions. However, it is important to be aware of the factors.
I mean, it will be a straightforward, blatant gender pay gap if someone with the same qualifications and the same position, same role, same job description, same duties are paid less for their peers solely because of their, based on their gender. That's one thing. But more subtle, nuanced scenario would be that if you take into considerations about the time off from work to look after family, to raise, to care for children, like maternity leaves. That if so, I think part of it is paid. Part of, if you extend that, that's unpaid. Uh, that probably over a lifetime, yeah, that over a lifetime that would lead to lower earnings if unpaid, like semi-paid. That's one thing. The other thing is that when you take into consideration the issue here is that higher earning leadership positions, majority of the time, most of the times, go to men. I'm saying go to men because if you think that men get to those positions because solely by their capabilities, you're fooling yourself. There is no self-made man. When you succeed, many of the times you need, I mean, we're social animals. To get to the top, we need cooperation. So if people around you, the majority of people around you, or the system, let's forget about people, if the system is placed in a way that the system or people around you facilitate your climbing the ladder, going up to the top, rising to the top, it will be easier for you to go to the top. If you think that women cannot rise to the top and a man can rise to the top solely because the man is more capable, qualified, has better leadership capabilities, you're fooling yourself. Consider this. Do you think like um, like a high earning CEO of like a big company man is there in that position because there is no one else in that company or in that region with similar skills who could rise to the top? No, that's not the case. It's just like thinking that if Einstein were never born, then we'd never have the theory of relativity because he's the only person who could stumble upon or who could develop this theory. Someone else would have done this sooner or later. It's the facilitation that makes the man. It's the system that makes the man or woman. It's not the person themselves who can like fight against the whole world and can rise to the top. That's a myth. That's a myth. Yeah, even for successful men, you have faced hurdles, struggles, problems. But who doesn't? And you solely remember those struggles and hurdles because you want to credit yourself with the success. You don't want to remember the facilitation you've had. Consider this. Someone born in a first world country would have a much higher chance to climb to the top and become a high earning CEO compared to someone coming from a developing or less developed countries. Except for Google CEO, that's an exception, which probably proves the point. So time, place, person, being in the right place, being born in the right time, these factors play a big role, a huge role, which we probably don't want to acknowledge or accept because we want to highlight our own skills, capabilities, qualifications, and achievements. Same thing for gender. So we, as a society, probably both in the developing nations and in the well developed countries, we still cannot see ourselves being led by a woman. Maybe that's what is causing this glass ceiling, which that was creating this glass ceiling, which women can get through, cannot easily get to the top to like higher earning positions, which leads to a lower earning. So, but the problem is this is not easily identifiable. This one is not easily identifiable. Overall life term, less earning due to childcare, maternity leaves. This is not easily, there is no easy solution to that. The only thing which is pretty straightforward is that same position, same years of experience, same qualifications, but different pay. This is one thing we should and must address. You may argue that even with same position, qualification, years of experience, two people, regardless of the gender, may have different outputs, or you may call it efficiency. So let's agree to have a baseline salary and reward the person for their efficiency with like some kind of bonus, efficiency bonus. rather than negotiating the salary as low from the outset. So I think that could be a solution. So let me know what you think and what I've missed and what other questions I should have asked about the gender pay gap. So this is my first time exploring this issue with Bart. So probably going forward, if there are other minute details which come forward from either your comments or suggestions, I'll probably discuss these issues with Bart as well. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye.